Oh, Washington. The man, the myth, the legend. A figure in American history that I would classify as an immortal. That is to say, when America is long gone, the legend of George Washington, like Cincinnatus, will live on in history. George Washington is, after all, regarded as the most significant president in our history. Having played a pivotal role in shaping the presidency as it exists today, he is also the most distant and arguably complex president among those we feel a strong affinity for. Hello, history friends. Welcome back to my channel, Historical USA. My name is Lisa. I am a historian, and on this channel, we discover the people, places, and events that have made America. Now, we are doing something a little different this week. In the podcast, we finished up with the Stamp Act that has been repealed. We are really going to amp up some of the revolutionary and rebel activity in the next couple of episodes. However, I love the podcast and I love doing a narrative of American history. And I have always felt that you could learn a lot from American history by studying America's presidents. And it has been a goal of mine for many years to read one biography of every American president. So that would be 45 biographies at the time of me recording this. And I just finished my first biography of George Washington. If you are a member of the book club on Patreon, which is free, anyone can go and join. Our book for August was Washington, A Life by Ron Chernow. And I think I'm saying that right, Ron Chernow. I keep wanting to put an H in there, so forgive me if I say that, his name wrong. But this book, this thick biography, she's a big girl, I must admit has been sitting on my to be read shelf for some time. I mean, she's a little bit intimidating. So when we chose this, I was really excited because I thought, okay, this is going to be great. I am finally going to have that motivation to do what I've always wanted to do, and that is to read a biography of each United States president. Now, I must admit, I have the book, but I also downloaded the Audible book because I had a month to read this and I really wanted to finish it within the month so I could do a book review. So that is what we're doing today. I am reviewing this extensive biography of George Washington. So let's get into it. Also, I'll let you know how I feel about the audiobook too. Let me know in the comments, what do you think? Have you read this book before? Are you at the book club? Put your review down below. I would really like to know your thoughts and your opinions. Now, as a historian, I have read a lot of books on the American Revolution, on the Founding Fathers, but I've never actually read a dedicated biography to George Washington. So everything that I've learned about him is either through another biography or through some kind of event. Okay, so whether it was about a battle or about the Continental Congress, something like that. So everything that I've learned about George Washington is either through one of his contemporary accounts about him, but I've never sat down and actually read a biography about George Washington until now. This is the first book that I have read by Ron Chernow. And as a historian, I really want to commend Chernow for tackling a cradle to grave, all-encompassing biography of a man who has lived essentially several different lives and trying to untangle and explain the historical complexities of life in 18th century America. I really applaud him for taking that on, because that is a huge amount of research and work that he has put into this. So first and foremost, I want to say that. Now, smartly, the book is divided into 6 parts. The frontiersman, the planter, the general, the statesman, the president, the legend. And I also want to commend him for putting all of that into one book instead of trying to piece it out into a 6-part volume, which he easily could have done. And he might have sold more doing that because people like to take in bite-sized. It's more manageable for people to take bite-sized pieces of history sometimes rather than taking a look at this book and running for the hills because they know they can't finish it in a weekend. Now, Chernow, in my view, presents a meticulous portrayal of Washington by delineating both noteworthy qualities and Washington's imperfections and faults. This is not a book that elevates Washington to that of a saint. And I think a lot of times Americans, especially we Americans, George Washington's the GOAT. He is the OG. I mean, he had that dog in him. We tend to put him high up on a pedestal, I think, a lot of times. And to bring him down and really dissect him as the man rather than the legend can be a daunting task. And that is exactly what I think Chernow achieves in this book. Now, like I said, he's not going to always paint Washington in a good light in the book, but rather as a man who really was very ambitious and took the opportunities that were presented to him when presented to him. He portrays Washington as a man with vanity, ordering a red sash and a gold braid for his uniform, a man who took offense at slights, yet when called upon, kept his rage to himself, a man who vented his frustrations when assigned to a military rank he believed was inadequate. He was courageous. He was trustworthy, he was diligent, and he was hardworking. And I think Chernow does an excellent job capturing all of those attributes of Washington. And like I said, Chernow does not shy away from highlighting and discussing many of Washington's faults. He recognizes that Washington was a man, however, who learned from those faults. Now, he portrays Washington as someone who felt hampered, embarrassed at times of his lack of college education, a man who had an explosive temper that he tightly controlled, a man capable of leading his men, but finding lots of frustration having to lead an untrained and undisciplined army. He shows Washington to be above all human. Most importantly, he portrays a Washington who averted the army's demise during the Revolution and whose actions shaped the presidency of the United States. Now, the parts of Washington's life that really pricked my interest the most. In it, he lays forth the economic elements that push Washington against Britain. I found those really interesting. I think a lot of people would find those rather boring. As a planter and a land speculator, Washington was a businessman, and Chernow talks about his interactions with London agents. Again, something I found really interesting, but I could see where someone would find those parts of Washington rather dull. Chernow does not shy away from the topic of slavery in this book, taking up 2 chapters and portions of others. He makes it plain that Washington despised slavery, but that he could not part with slavery since doing so would have brought him financial ruin. One thing I really appreciated from Chernow was he didn't talk about slavery in a blanket term. He, when appropriate, gave the enslaved a name, a voice, a description where possible. It is a very delicate subject, and I really think that Chernow handled it with care. I think he took time to explain what life for those enslaved on Washington's plantations went through, what their day-to-day life would have been like, how Martha and George treated their enslaved, even how Washington's mother treated her enslaved, which I found really interesting. Which leads me to the other point that Chernow also discussed Washington's difficult relationship with his mother, Mary Ball. And I think a lot of people can relate to having a difficult relationship with your mother. That really brought a human element to Washington. Another thing is Washington oftentimes has a reputation of being cold, austere, stoic, but Chernow really took times to refute those claims, especially early in Washington's life, highlighting Washington's ambitions and frustrations coming through on the page. Now, as far as the writing, I give the writing an 8 out of 10. I think Chernow does a great job. For me, I don't find it as dull as I think others do. I have come across authors who are better at telling a more flowing story than Chernow. Research, 10 out of 10. It's no wonder why Chernow wins a Pulitzer Prize for this. The research is extensive. It is well done. I will say that I know that there is an edition of this book that the pages get messed up and they're all over the place, because when I was looking through the reviews, one of the editions that was printed wrong and have parts kind of all over the place. So if you do pick this up, be careful what edition you have, because I know that one of them was misprinted wrong. Now, as far as the historiography goes, what Chernow's interpretation and analysis of the facts of the history is. As far as the historiography, it wasn't as if Chernow was trying to create some kind of left-wing narrative or right-wing narrative, trying to infuse some type of philosophy, social philosophy like Marxism into the work. I didn't feel like he was trying to do any of that. I just felt me as a historian with a different worldview, a different opinion, would have drawn maybe a slightly different conclusion, or I wouldn't have used that adjective with how he was describing Washington, or I wouldn't have tried to infer so much of my own opinion onto Washington based on the lack of primary sources and documentation we had on certain subjects. But very minor. Like I said, I didn't find it annoying or distracting or made me want to quit and throw it away and never want to read it again. I think Chernow does a good job trying to maintain a level of objectivity in his work. So historiography, 8 out of 10. I understand that he's going to lean favorably on Hamilton, considering he's been living in Hamilton's world, having written the biography of Hamilton before this one. So if you are not a fan of Hamilton, and you read this and you get to those cabinet parts, Chernow really shows his bias in favor of Hamilton. But I think that's kind of I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I really think that's pretty obvious if you know anything about Ron Chernow. I mean, he wrote the biography on Hamilton that Lin-Manuel Miranda used as an interpretation for his play, and then he worked as a history consultant on the Broadway musical. So he's been living in Hamilton's world for a long time. So I understand where his bias is on that. But if you are a Jefferson fan and you are in favor of Jeffersonian politics, just be mindful of that. But other than that, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. As far as the audiobook goes, I give the audio 7 out of 10. And maybe that's just me. I downloaded the audiobook because I knew that I wouldn't have time to sit and read it, and I really wanted to try and get through the book in a month. So I would download the audio. So when I was doing something that I could listen to it, or, when I was in the car or something like that. So the audiobook, 7 out of 10. I don't know who narrated it. I'll put it down in the link below. But I just kind of found him kind of dull. And yeah, I wasn't a fan of the audiobook. But other than that, I really enjoyed Chernow's writing. The next book for September in the book club we are voting on now, but for me, I am going to not only read the book from the book club, whatever that is that we choose, but my next presidential biography, I figured I would go in order. So the next presidential biography is John Adams by David McCullough. Love David McCullough. I can already tell I'm probably going to love it because I have enjoyed everything McCullough has written that I've read. He's an author I know very well. And I know that the John Adams HBO series is based off of this book. So maybe I will do a reaction to like the first episode in the miniseries or something. I will do another book review if you guys like this. I mean, if you don't like me doing book reviews on this channel, I won't do another one for you. Maybe I'll just leave them for Patreon. But yeah, so let me know, A, what you think of this book, B, if I should do more book reviews, and C, I really need your help finding a biography for Thomas Jefferson. So if you have a suggestion for a biography on Thomas Jefferson that you really liked, that you thought was very good, let me know in the comments below. One president down, 44 more to go. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please like and subscribe. That really helps out the channel, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.